Welcome to the CEN show, the voice of the world community. I'm your host, Rashaki Maskani. Tonight we have Professor Rahh, Ernest McBride Jr., Brother Kwabena, Brother Rahh, and Brother Mshinda. We're going to do a Black community living. And there's a few topics that's kind of pertinent today. And I'm going to let Professor Rahh start with the Diddy trial. So, Professor Rahh.
Well, I didn't follow the whole trial, but I followed enough when he came back and only was convicted of 2 cases of dealing with prostitution versus RICO, or what they, that situation, and sex by force. And another case, they found him guilty with the two lesser ones they did. And it was interesting that they didn't put Trump on trial for his forcible sexual abuse. They just did Silver. And they were saying that most people who get just prostitution cases, they get probation, or they get, because, it didn't entail violence, and or they get bail. In most federal cases, they let you out until, even after your sentencing, after you get a sentence, they let you out until you get your sentence. Then you report to the federal police. But this brother, they denied him bail. He don't get sentenced until October. And the judge based his decision not to give him probation or bail, bail him out on the basis of that. That had nothing to do with the trial. It's about the video. Say he has a propensity for violence. And so therefore, and second, that because he didn't give him bail at the beginning of the trial, he's not going to give him bail now. And I just thought that as an example of the 2-tier corruption of the criminal court system in America, has always been harder on African Americans than they do white people. And I just thought, listen, I'm like Kwabena. I'm not a Diddy fan, and I'm not a Diddy follower. I don't even know what the music sounds like. The only person I recognized was Biggie. And that's because I did a video. I had a video on Biggie's life, and I showed it to my class. And I talked about how Tupac at 25 got popped, and Biggie got killed around 24 or something. I mean, he was a young man. And I was just trying to tell them they were singing about a lifestyle that took their lives. You understand? And that's a very important thing. But then back to the day, I just think it's another example of why so many Black people are incarcerated and white people for the same crime are out, and things of this nature. This white boy just killed 4 girls in Idaho. And then they let him cop a plea because they have the death penalty. And the judge accepted the plea. When many Black people, if you did some heinous crimes like that, they wouldn't even let you plea. If the case was as solid as they said they were, they wouldn't even be discussing the plea. You understand? And but they're gonna give him a so-called life imprisonment without parole. And that's like being buried in an iron casket. So thing, isn't it? But that's the main thing, like we're the people are so naive. You see, white folks, they're actors and wickedly actors, trickeration. You watch them on TV, they talk moral talk, they talk heroism, they're against everything bad. But in real life, if you just really check it out, now look at this situation with us as a people, letting them pick up Latinos with no due process. And there's not really there's an uproar among Latinos, but you don't see right so-called moral people that are white stepping up and really saying, no, this is wrong. But because they don't think the law applies to anybody but them, because the laws were created to protect white supremacy. And here they are, got a Nazi for president and a criminal, domestic criminal. Trump daddy was a German. Trump them immigrated from Germany. Trump wife was, as Miss Crockett said, came here as a model under a statute that requires you to be won the Nobel Peace Prize or did something unique or professional athlete or Olympic. But they got her in here. Then they went and got her mother and father. But nobody's really talking about it. And that's what makes you upset about the Democratic Party. When Biden appointed Garland as a prosecutor, that was the worst decision in the world. Because he's the one that delayed the investigation of Trump almost a year and a half. And that's why they ran out of time. Because he said he didn't want to be political. Wasn't nothing political about prosecuting Trump or prosecuting, the people. But that's the same thing I apply at the Diddy stage. The two-tier system. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying African Americans who commit crimes and they get less sentence when they commit crimes against their own people. You understand? And there's no high pursuit of murder cases or solving them, and they get lesser sentences when the victims is us by Black people. And then versus the European, if a Black person just look at a white woman, they give him a rape case, and either lynching or give him a bunch of time. But I was just a little, because most legal analysis predicted that he would get bail and that they would let him out because that's what they generally give people who get convicted of prostitution. You understand? But instead, I think they're going to throw the 10-year sentence on him. And he got convicted of two cases that are 10 years apiece. I think they're just going to give him 10 years and combine the other cases, let him do it concurrently. And that's what I see. I don't know about you, Kwabena, how you feel about
it? I don't know. I just think because I didn't think they were going to get him on no RICO charges when they first tried that. I have no respect for that dude, what he's meant, how he struggled with the whole slop hop industry. I heard we were talking about Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, and you guys probably heard me share her quote, how rap music has annihilated the self-respect of Black people. But Sean Combs is one of the main ones who's been a part of that for a long time in hip hop or in rap music. And just the misogyny, just the disrespect, just the alcohol abuse, the shooting and killing the Black folks. And he's been all a part of that. And I just have no respect for him and what he represents. When it comes to this trial, I'm not surprised that he just got acquitted on everything else but those two charges. But I did think they were going, let him out today. I mean, prostitution. This whole thing. And then I think about like over here where I live, they just had Too Short coming concert, and everybody was all taking pictures and bragging about Too Short being here. And he has a song, well known for rapping, calling our women B's and H's, and he has a song right now where you see these grown 50-year-old women dancing to him, calling them B's today. You know, it's just this whole rap thing, hip hop thing, has just been so destructive to our people. So I don't have that much respect for Puff. Whenever he gets out, if it's 10 years, if it's in October, if it's next week, I just wish he'd go sit somewhere wherever Russell Simmons and Bambaataa are, and just stay away from us. Just stay the hell away from us. That dude, you know. And then again, but also I think we need to deal with these other perpetrators, because again, he may go away. He's a rotten piece of almost billionaire fruit that we can throw away, but then there's others out there. So it's really a industry thing that we got to address with them. So it's just, I don't know. I haven't been following the trial too much, but you can't help. Like even ABC News has a 10 o'clock special on the trial coming on tonight. So I mean, I'm not going to watch it, but I was watching World News earlier, and they shared that when they talked about what's happening with him now. But there's no respect for that dude and what he represents, and he's not the only one that we have little or no respect for. And those above him, you know, who promote him and push him. I mean, why Clive Davis? Lock him up. Lock up. What's this guy's name? Dan Crawford, Crawford Broadcasting. Lock up this dude who's in charge of No Heart Radio, who orders the hits on our people. I have some relatives who were at a party, teenagers, a graduation party just this past week in Louisiana, where 4 or 5 people got shot. And I asked my one little relative, what type of music were they playing? Was the music encouraging us to shoot and kill each other? He said, yep, they sure were. And this is all over. This is in a small town in Louisiana just this past weekend. And that's what Puffy represents. That's what Dan Crawford represents. That's what whatever the guy's name in charge of iHeart or No Heart Radio. And they have 28 such stations around the country that play that music. It tells people to do what Puffy did. There was a guy, what's his name? Rich Homie Quan. He just passed away last year. He had a song where ooh, 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 ooh. He says, give that girl some X and she gonna want to sex every end in the set. So basically you're gonna give her some drugs and let her get drug raped. And it's like, and that stayed in hot rotation for about 8 months. He performed it at the Atlanta Hawks opening of their basketball season. It's just, this stuff is just tearing us up. And again, whatever happens to Puff, you know, I don't know. I know I said too much about it, but I have no respect for that dude and what he represents.
Okay. What about you, Ernest?
Well, I just got maybe one thing to say. I got no respect for a man that don't respect women. And that's kind of what he showed me. He's that type of guy, you know. So I got no sympathy for him one way or the other. So.
I'm kind of confused. What is respect these days? Do women respect themselves? I mean, you know, in the culture, this what they so-called cultures.
Yeah. You could always find women to do what he was forcing that lady to do. There's some out there who would do that in a minute, you know, like you say. So he didn't have to do what he did. So
yeah, but that's the case that he was found innocent of forcible rape. But let me say this to you. You know, it's a challenge for us to support this brother in any kind of way, as you said, the disrespect among himself. But you know, brother Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Michael Jackson, this brother Prince, Prince,
not necessarily. He didn't have no run-ins, but he was a power broker, and he can't turned up dead.
Yeah, but he's using drugs. But I'm talking about you know, all these black people become poster child of rape, and all of them have one thing in common: they all hung out with white folks. You understand? And when you develop a white mentality, psychology, and you get their diseases, not just their physical diseases, but their mental diseases. There was a time we never thought about black people committing suicide. Now, you've been acculturated so long, you see black people committing suicide or mass killing.
I'm about to say mass killers too. Yep.
Yeah, and now here you got, and I agree with Kwabena. All those records that Kwabena be talking about, white folks promote. You understand? Right? White folks give them Grammys. I mean, give them everything we try to teach our kids not to do. They reward them for. So that stimulates kids to want to do that. You know, all that profanity, Two Live Crew, all of them people. And remember when BET used to have the videos of them all in a hot tub with 4 and 5 women drinking, pouring beer all over the woman and all that type of stuff they were doing. And I agree with Ernest about disrespect. But when you get out of your culture, because white folks never respected women. They didn't even let them vote until 1920. And they believed in beating women all throughout their history. And some black brothers get involved and like that. And then they shield the white people like who I think it's Einstein and some the guy that killed himself in prison that was going into his island. They won't even release the list of white folks that was there. They say, like they won't even release all the paperwork. That's what Musk was saying. Said, why don't they release them papers? Because Trump went over there and hung out with that with those people. And so Trump did forcible sex abuse, and they only got him for a civil case. Wouldn't even put him on trial. You understand? The prosecutors could have prosecuted. You understand? But I'm just showing you how they protect their image. I'm telling you that television and their motion pictures where they act like they're so moral, they be acting. What you're seeing in Trump and in these abuses of women, and the one and he is right. The white woman supports him. Look how many white women voted for Trump after he said he could grab their coochie. Look how many white women voted for Trump after he got convicted of sexual abuse. You understand? They the ones that loaded his gun to kill the Indians. They're the ones that prayed for him and cheered for him when they were raping black women during the Holocaust of enslavement. And you didn't see no woman group during the Holocaust of enslavement out protesting the enslavement of black people. Matter of fact, they even owned slaves, enslaved people. So I mean, the naivete about people, to not see through the cobwebs of confusion and the illusion of inclusion. And now I hear Trump saying he wants to send criminals, deport criminals, period. Not just Latinos. Then he said he wanted to get rid of people that have been nationalized citizens. And then he said that he wanted to get rid of birthrights. I want you to understand, this is a he controls the Supreme Court. He supports Congress, the Senate, and our people are naive to think that they won't start deporting just black people, period. And they already been killing them. You understand? And getting away. So I mean, you gotta wake up, and teach. That's why I want that lady to talk about voices that are quiet during the time of crisis. We're in difficult, demanding, dangerous, and demanding time.
Hey, Professor Rahh.
Yeah.
I wanted to get Mshinda's take on the Diddy trial.
Go ahead.
If you want to talk about it. Brother Mshinda?
Yeah, I don't have much on that. It's just a guy that's guy that has a lot of money. So it's a high profile situation. So the television industry feeds off of it. There's a lot of ratings, a lot of money made off of people who follow these types of trials and things like that that are televised or that's in the news. So it generates a lot of money. So whether he did it or not, that's between him and who he has to deal with. You know, obviously the jury said what they said, so he's exonerated on certain charges. So okay, what else is new? So he had a dream team. He had money. Average brother in society don't have that kind of money. They go up the river. They through. So, if you got money to do what you got to do, if that's what you do, like I say, he got to answer to what he got to answer to. And that's it. But it's just it shows you if you have money, um, you can have the laws interpret in your favor. uh, you know, not saying he's guilty or not guilty. I'm just saying that if you have the money, people are well connected. These are humans, so-called humans that are running these trials. These lawyers are well connected. Trump is, those people are affiliated with Trump in a certain way. So, some push come to shove, you may see a pardon, if they want to give him 10 years on each of those things that they convicted him on. The prostitution, transportation of prostitution, two charges that can lead to 10 years each. But the legal experts saying that it's no way possible that's going to happen. In the federal court, that's going to happen. But um, I will say that I hate to see a brother who got caught up. I deal with people every day, and it alarms me when we take off into the wrong direction and we get caught up into all kind of things, whether it's drugs and so forth, or whatever we get caught up. So I'm always rooting for the people to get themselves together, get themselves right, trying to keep myself straight, trying to keep stay on track. So I'm not gonna hate on the situation. I wish he has a family. I wish him and his family well. I hope he gets help and try. He didn't kill nobody, in the situation supposedly or whatever. He's, that didn't come out. Just, you know, uh, using his power to have fun and to control and then of course I'm sure there's violence involved with egos and all that kind of stuff. So this is just a scenario to give you a good uh interpretation of what's going on with people that has power. He's almost a billionaire. So they have 70 civil charges against him, several 70 cases. So he may give up $200 or $300 million. So he still have $200 or $300 million. So what? You know, but I hope he gets help, and I hope I hope that but again, I don't support any negativity, any violence, anything like that. But I hope that he try to make himself whole. But other than that, there's there's other things that are more important, in society. Of course, we become the poster child. We're on the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock news every night. Who we killed, we up for murder and robbery and all that. Black people have been posterized on these news medias as villains and killers and all that kind of stuff. So they take his trial and it's the same thing. If he did it, let deal with it. But it's high profile, and the sensationalism, that type of thing. So unfortunately, it's a continuation of trying to mold the mindsets and the opinions of this is how we act, this is who we are as a people. The young folks, they say, oh, this, and does all black people act like that? It's a, it's that subliminal seduction and that you know, just the conditioning of the mind, that we're uncivilized and we're crazy and we're killers and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's all kind of folks doing all kind of things, but you don't see them on the news all the time. You don't see their trials, those Epstein Island and all that craziness. We heard about it, but they don't talk about that. They don't. That ain't something everybody waiting do you know what's going on with that case? I know somebody, do we know what happened? No. Like somebody mentioned Clive Davis or any of these recording moguls, you don't hear about none of that. But people say like Bill Cosby and with trying to buy NBC studios, NBC, and P Diddy in his Ciroc, his liquor business. He wants to get the market share, and they're like, hey, you can't get the market share. So then it's time to expose you. You've been doing wrong, so now we got something on you. So I don't know how true that is, but it's probably true. Where there's smoke, there's fire. You know what I'm saying? There's something to that because that's their MO. That's what they do. And if you don't play along with their game, they'll expose you. So so you want to dance with the enemy. You got to expect some fallout behind that. So anyway, I wish everybody well, and that's all I can say. But I have no more.
Mshinda, what do you think about Kanye West asking Trump to give him a pardon?
You said Kanye West asking Trump to give Diddy a pardon?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I heard Trump say himself, he would look into it if some wrongdoing going on. If I feel somebody was mistreated in something, he said, I definitely look into it. He said that out of his own mouth. So, um, these guys are friends. These guys have, they're in the music industry together. They look, and so this is his brethren. It's, coming to his aid. Saying, hey, I'll do what I can to help you out, man. You help me out. That kind of thing. They in that industry together. So I got no problem with that. That's what they do. If you want to look out for somebody that helps you out, I mean, I'm not condoning what went down. We all seen a video where he was kicking and beating on this woman and stuff, and then he admitted that he made a mistake and he shouldn't have did all that. He feels bad about it and all that. But but he needs help. He's a sick dude. When you do that, when you resort to that, you have serious mental illness, and it's been unchecked. So Kanye West, he's been revealed as mental illness, that kind of thing, So, but I don't have a problem with somebody helping somebody else out, or trying to, hey, exhaust your resources. Everybody else do it. But let's not forget about what happened. Let's not forget about the effects that it has on our people, and so I'll just throw it like that. I'm not going to pass judgment, because that ain't my position, but I can speak on it. It ain't right, and I think the brother needs help. And Kanye West, if he can get Diddy a pardon through Trump, hey, that's what everybody do. They use their resources, like getting a job, call your uncle up, see if he can hire me, that kind of thing. So call your people up and see if they can say a few good words for me. So that's what we do as people, So there ain't nothing different. This man is facing life in prison. So he's like, man, somebody help me now that they done dropped the RICO and the other stuff. Now he's looking at 10 per charge, but they said that'll never happen. But I'm saying is, yeah, he needs all the help he can get. But I look out for his family, man. I'm looking at their family. They was brought up in it, and they probably got some mental illness too, and they need some help. That's all. So, but but hey, more power to them on that. But I don't support nothing that's negative, that's going down. But I believe in redemption.
I like that analogy, brother. That's a good one. What about you, Ernest?
Well, I think they kind of overcharged, like on that racket 10 or whatever, So I'm kind of along with the jury. I didn't go along with that, but I don't know those other charges they had against him. But like Mshinda was saying, black man always get the short end of the deal, because this white guy now that killed those 4 students, he they're gonna try him in Utah so he can not face the death penalty, and he agreed to plead guilty. I said, I thought, now he done murdered 4 kids, and then he wants to hang on, spare himself with self-preservation. You can go along with that, but they letting him, try him in a state that don't believe in the death penalty, to save his life. So, but I'm thinking it'd be somebody like Puff. They would try to throw the book at him, like you say. So I don't know. I haven't been catching up with it too long because, like I say, my wife, she don't. When I turn on the news, she want to see a cowboy movie. It's her thing. So I say, okay, whatever you want to look at. When she go to sleep, I might turn on CNN and stuff. And try to catch up with what's going on.
Okay, hey, Professor Rahh. Yeah. I want to go to Kwabena so he could talk about the 2 celebration, the birthdays of 2 great men. Brother Kwabena?
Right on, brother. So a lot of us have been talking about Malcolm and the 100th anniversary of his birth, born May 19th, 1925. Matter of fact, over here in Garyville, we have a centennial lecture series we've been doing every month, with people coming in to speak about certain aspects of Malcolm, and just giving it up for that brilliant brother on his 100th anniversary. And last month, we talked about some things that are going on internationally. I just thought about this today. The quote we used from Malcolm was, "You can't understand what's going on in Mississippi unless you understand what's going on in the Congo." Now, in Mississippi during that time, it was right around the time when Medgar Evers was assassinated, when he said that. And you look at the Congo, it was right around the time when Patrice Lumumba was assassinated. And ironically, today, July 2nd, 2025, is the 100th anniversary of the birth of both Patrice Lumumba and Medgar Evers. And these were just 2 brilliant Black men, brilliant Africans who sacrificed their lives on behalf of the people, working for the people. Medgar Evers, NAACP field secretary out of Mississippi, was constantly harassed and threatened, and Molotov cocktails thrown at his house, almost ran over, and eventually assassinated by Byron de la Beckworth, I think was his name. And if you look at the movie Till, you'll see him depicted in there. Just a stellar brother. And when we talk about Malcolm and Martin, a lot of times we talk about Medgar too, and respectfully and righteously so, right there in Mississippi. And I think about our homeboy, our brother who wrote the book, We Will Shoot Back. And I was communicating with another brother today. He read a book about the Deacons for Defense, and he also talked about the book, When We Shoot Back, We Will Shoot Back, that chronicles the Mississippi resistance and the Mississippi struggles that were going on there. And he said both of those books woke him up, because he was thinking about the civil rights movement. We were just being passive and not doing anything. And no, we weren't. And those books definitely hit hard, especially one to me about, I didn't read the book about the Deacons for Defense yet, but definitely read We Will Shoot Back by Akinyele, brother Akinyele Moja. I guess from the West Coast too, our brothers from the West Coast. But just to chronicle how they weren't playing out there in Mississippi, how they were organizing and fighting back and weren't playing. And so there was a lot of resistance there. And, they saw, he was there, like I said, with Emmett Till. They talked about with the Emmett Till case. And so we just salute that brother. And also, we want to say Murley's still with us. His wife, Miss Murley Evers, is still with us. So it's not too long ago that brother was doing what he was doing. And like Malcolm said, you can't understand what's going on, what was happening then in Mississippi, unless you also look at what was going on in the Congo. And it's still going on in the Congo today. Patrice Lumumba. I mean, just there was a lot of people, struggling for our people in the Congo, and we know what happened when he took over power from the Belgians, and the CIA was all in there, and Europe was all in there because of all the resources that are in the Congo. And Patrice Lumumba was vocal, and he was strong in his support for Africa and African resources.
Pan-Africanism, yes.
Pan-Africanism, yeah, and with Nkrumah and others. And he was assassinated. Then they put, speaking of which, these sellout Sambos that we're talking about, they put in Mobutu Sese Seko, who ruled and became a billionaire. We're talking about billionaires. He became a billionaire, while he was still getting the billions or the billion. The West was just extracting the resources from the Congo. And so just salute both of those brothers. And again, all born in 1925. There's a couple more that we talk about born in 25 too. It was our brother from France, Fanon, and it was somebody else. I'm trying to think who the other brother was, who was also born in 1925, where we recognized their 100th anniversary of them being here. There was one more, I can't recall right now, but just wanted to shout them brothers out, man. And we look at what's going on in Sahel with Ibrahim Traore, Brother Gota, and the other leaders in Africa and the youth in Africa who are rising up against imperialism, kicking the French out, saying we're going to control our own resources. And then we go back and see what happened the other day, thinking about this knucklehead Nazi, as he was just described, talking about the pretty sister from the Congo, who was reporting on the Congo and Rwanda conflict. Yeah, and so he's talking about how pretty she is, but yet he supposedly brokered a peace deal between them and Rwanda being used to go in and extract resources for these corporations, which is why one of the reasons why we look at Rwanda right now and it's being a place where a lot of people want to go. Yeah, because they're a darling of the West. But I love Ibrahim Traore's simple reaction to that. He just said that, hey, how embarrassing it was pretty much that we have to go outside of our continent for these imperialists who have this history of exploiting us and taking our resources to come in and broker peace, and then they get more stranglehold on our resources. So he made it plain, but I mean, the tide is turning. Patrice Lumumba, we say he's smiling at his grave. You say Malcolm, Martin, who understood that, Wood Nkrumah, and Garvey, Du Bois, they are, I would think, are optimistic about what's happening. I just got back from Louisiana. I was with my mother and my auntie. Both my mother wanted to know more about Ibrahim Traore. My auntie she sent me a text in April, just simply said his name. 90 years old. I just saw her. She was like, she just loves him. And she's very, very religious and apolitical. But she loves what's going on in Africa, and the people are really excited about what's happening. And we know that if we got to get serious here in the U.S. And so I'm just want to salute them two brothers, man. Again, on this today, the anniversary of their birth, centennial anniversary of their birth. Long live Patrice Lumumba. Long live Brother Medgar Evers.
Right on, brother.
Appreciate it. Go ahead, Professor Rob.
Appreciate what's been said, if I understand correctly. Medgar Evers was born July 2nd in, I think, Decatur, Mississippi. And then he got assassinated in Jackson, Mississippi. Shot in the back in his driveway on the way home. He served in the Army. You know what I'm saying? And he became the NAACP first field secretary. And, again, the two things that many of us as African Americans, some of us don't really think about, is how vicious these Caucasians are with assassination. I doubt if the average kid who's in school today know who Medgar did. The cat that voted for voting rights, struggled for voting rights, desegregation of public facilities. And, was a martyr. He was a martyr. Many of them knew who they were dealing with. But many of the people today don't know who they're dealing with. And they get naive. Like we always say, you may not be at war, but you're definitely in a war. And all you have to do is look at the casualties and the death rate at the hands of Europeans from different institutional ways, poor healthcare, poor health facilities. I think William Guthrie in his book, they only, even the rats were white. All the studies on diseases, white people, they got rid of all the things about sickle cell anemia. You don't even hear about that pertaining to Black people. And that kind of just how vicious the Holocaust of enslavement was, how vicious sharecropping was, how vicious, and they want to get rid of all that teaching and get rid of the books that are saying. Not only do they want people to teach it, they don't want people to be able to research it. So but getting back to McBride, strong brother, as Kwabena was saying, his wife was a strong sister and kept up his legacy for years. Then she remarried years after. But I think they found the killers maybe, I think about 1970 sometime. He was killed way back, way before then. It goes to show you, I think some of the killers we even did or something like that. I think it's assassination. Same thing with Priest Lumumba, where the CIA tried to poison him. And then when that didn't work, he was killed by the CIA to destabilize the Congo. And as Kwabena said, there's so many martyrs that I don't know about that, and I'm a Black studies professor, that these kids, the young generation is not being taught. And they're not being taught by their mothers and fathers because the mothers and fathers don't know that they should be teaching this and grounding their kids in ethics and values so that these European culture, such as the rap music, the violence, the drugs, and all that, that they're taught not to participate in that. My mother and father never told me what not to do. You understand? I didn't learn this until after I got out of college, and began to study that it's not about hating white people. It's about loving your people. And to love them, you educate them to ethics and morals and values of having a strong character. Even if you don't want to participate in the struggle, at least keep your character in check and your values in check. So I agree with Brother Kwabena. We should begin to develop our wall of heroes and heroines that contributed to. There are bridges that we cross, and they're the shoulders we stand on. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, that was magnificent information there. And next
Can I say
week,
something
go ahead. Go ahead, brother.
about Mississippi? I'm going to talk about a contemporary of Medgar Evers and what the brother was saying about the struggle in Mississippi was not just we shall overcome, it was an armed struggle too. My children's grandfather, Dr. Mason, Gilbert Mason, who was down on the coast there in the Gulf, contemporary of Medgar. They were friends. And Dr. Mason community took up arms down in Biloxi, Mississippi to protect him. He has a book called Blood on the Blood on the Beach, where Black people were not allowed to use public beaches. This man went on the beach by himself, surrounded by local police, state troopers, and all the white people down there to protest the fact that the tax dollars that the Black people pay was not enough for them for the white folks to allow them to get on that beach. And by himself, shaming the people down there and bringing to attention the treatment of his folk, open up those beaches. He was the one doctor in that town that would treat Black people and had to perform the surgeries, all on one floor, and the only thing separating the patients were maybe sheets to divide them. They didn't have private rooms. Deacons of Defense right next door, Louisiana. Brothers did pick up arms, and they didn't just pick them up, they were used down in Mississippi. So when my brother was talking about the struggle in Mississippi and down in Louisiana, it's a real deal. And those people, some of the people that were involved in that, are still there today, and they celebrating these struggles and the conflict. Now, on the Diddy deal, I'm not a bedroom police. You know, I don't. You know, whatever he wants to do in his bedroom is, you know, or anybody else, they business. And those were the two things they got him on: prostitution, taking them traveling across state lines, whatever it was. This is a trivial type of deal because everybody was grown, and it wasn't like the men came to him and his woman, and it was his women who always made the appointments. What gets me is I used to think it was about a power of political power that people were getting persecuted for our people. But it's not just political power, it's power, period. Power, period. Any type of power that people have, these white folks are gonna go and try and eliminate it. Pity, as far as I know, as far as Diddy is concerned, I remember him doing anything for our people, or even taking any type of stands. He was dancing his way to hell. So it's a power play, and I just wanted to just talk about that because I used to think that our political leaders were the ones that were targeted, but they aren't. Just anybody with any type of power, they don't want you to have anything. So, okay, yeah, what are we doing next week?
Appreciate it, Brother Rahh. Next week, we have Kwabena as the guest next week. Kwabena, you want to tell us what we're going to be talking about next week?
Where are we going? We just finished Black Music Month, and the last song we were talking about music that motivated the masses, music to motivate the masses, and we were sharing a song every day. And the last song we shared was a Donald Byrd song called "Where Are We Going," and it was remade with Marvin Gaye, and they waited a long time to release it. And as we finish up this first quarter of this century, we were 6 months into the second quarter of the century. Just want to ask the question: where are we going? Where are we going? So that's part of it. That's what I want to talk about next week.
That ought to be interesting.
Okay, appreciate it. Brother Mshinda?
Yeah, I just want to say today is Thurgood Marshall's birthday, and ironically, yesterday, which was the first, was on that day is when George Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to replace him.
Mm, mm.
So, something to think about. I don't want to get, but that's all. This history. That's all.
All right, thanks a lot. Professor Rahh, what we have next week on Tuesday?
Tomorrow I got to confirm. One of the people I was going to have got in an accident. So I got to check with somebody else. I'll let you know when we put it out to everybody.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming this evening. We're going to keep doing this as much as we could do it, as long as we're around here. And hopefully when we're not here, somebody can take over. So each one teach one in Conscious Corner. Everybody continue to have a great day.
Thank you, my brothers.
All
Peace,
right.
brother. Well,